In Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, birds sing and dance happily. Among all of them, a young blue macaw sees the other birds fly freely, but when it is about to take flight, several birds are captured and caged, causing the little macaw to fall from a tree, and be captured along with it. To all the other birds, which are taken to Moose Lake, Minnesota, USA. There, the box that was carrying the blue macaw falls by accident from the truck in which it was transported. He is then found by a girl named Linda, who adopts him and names him Blue. After 15 years, Linda owns a bookstore and Blue behaves like a human, so much so that he has not yet developed his ability to fly, but he has learned many human skills not very common in a bird and was by his side, during his birthday parties. Birthdays, spelling bees, and even at your high school graduation party. One day, an ornithologist named Tulio Montero arrives at Linda's bookstore and tells her that he has traveled thousands of kilometers looking for Blue, since as far as he knows, he is the last male of his species, so he must travel to Rio de Janeiro to mate with the last female, who is there. Linda and Blue are not convinced by Tulio's proposal, since they don't like traveling, but Tulio asks Linda to think about it and gives her her number. In the night, Blue makes an attempt to fly, but fails out of fear of him. Linda decides in the end to go to Rio with Blue, thinking that it would be the best thing for him. Already in Brazil, Blue meets a canary named Nico and a red-crested cardinal named Pedro, who give him love advice to conquer a girl. Some dancers are passing through the streets and Tulio tells Linda that it is the Rio Carnival, one of the most famous parties in the world. In the laboratory where Tulio works, Blue is locked in an aviary, where he meets Jewel, a beautiful blue macaw, and instantly falls in love with her, but Jewel is not impressed to meet him, since all he thinks about is escape from the aviary. Blue, following Nico and Pedro's advice, tries to kiss Jewel thinking that's what she wanted, but this causes him to get angry and attack him. Then they both end up fighting. Linda and Tulio go out to dinner and leave the birds in charge of a guard named Silvio. Later, Nigel, a cockatoo posing as a sick bird in Tulio's lab, attacks Silvio with a tissue containing formalin, knocking him unconscious. Then Nigel opens the door and lets in a poor boy named Fernando and kidnaps Blue and Jewel, and leaves with Nigel. Linda and Tulio are notified of the theft of the birds while they were having dinner, so they start looking for them all over the city. Fernando takes Blue and Jewel to the lair of Marcel and his henchmen, Armando and Tipa, some bird traffickers who pay Fernando for stealing the blue macaws, which they plan to sell outside the country, so they chain them up, legs and locked in a room with many other stolen birds. Marcel leaves and leaves his henchmen in charge of the birds, but they are attentive on television watching a soccer match between the Brazilian and Argentine teams. Nigel explains to Blue and Jewel that years ago, a parrot took his place on a TV show and because of it, he turned bad and started stealing exotic birds. Jewel desperately tries to escape from the cage, until Blue, being so used to them by now, opens it effortlessly. Jewel flies away, but being chained to Blue, who confesses that he doesn't know how to fly yet, they are both forced to escape on foot. Armando, Tipa and Nigel chase Blue and Jewel through the streets. During the escape, Blue scares a cat and it jumps on the bird dealers. Then Blue and Jewel are chased by Nigel and jump from roof to roof. Just when Nigel had them cornered, just as the last goal was passed, Blue and Jewel spin and Nigel crashes into a transformer, causing a blackout and the game is suspended until the power is restored. Nigel survives the crash, falling into a chicken coop and ending up with electrocuted feather, while Blue and Jewel manage to escape and get lost in the jungle. The next day, Fernando, regretting having stolen the birds, meets Linda and Tulio, deciding to help them find the macaws. Blue and Jewel try to break the chain they carry on their legs, but they can't. Then they meet some toucan chicks, who attack them thinking they're intruders, until their father, a toucan named Raphael, stops them. Raphael offers Blue and Jewel to help them go with Louis, a friend of theirs who could take the chain off the macaws, but his irritating wife Eva forbids it, but Raphael manages to convince her by seducing her. However, going with Louis would be impossible since Blue's not knowing how to fly would prevent them from reaching him, so Raphael tries to teach Blue to fly, but the attempt turns out terribly wrong, so the group gets on a van that will take them with Louis. Meanwhile, Linda, Tulio and Fernando are running out of time to find the birds, Since the streets are closing due to Carnival. Nigel hires some robber marmoset monkeys to help him find Blue and Jewel, threatening to give them all flying lessons. Meanwhile, the group of birds arrive at their destination and meet Nico and Pedro, who tell them that Luis left on a tram and that to get there they would have to take the next one, so in the meantime, they go with Blue and Jewel to a samba club, where Nico and Pedro sing Hot Wings and Blue starts to dance but with a little push from Raphael, which impresses Jewel and they both end up dancing a duet. Then Jewel discovers that she is in love with Blue, and just as the two are about to kiss, the marmoset monkeys crash the party and force Blue and Jewel to go with them, but it all ends in a bird versus monkey fight. Blue and Jewel manage to escape, with the help of a roseate spoonbill to the tram accompanied by Raphael, Nico, and Pedro. Linda, Tulio and Fernando arrive at the smuggler's den, only to see that the birds are not there. Then Fernando confesses to Tulio and Linda that he was the one who stole the macaws. The smugglers arrive and meet Fernando and tell him that they are building an allegorical car to be able to infiltrate the carnival and get to the airport with the birds, since it was impossible for them to get through other streets since they will all be closed. Then Fernando accompanies the smugglers, and Linda and Julio, who heard the smugglers' plans while in hiding, go to the parade to stop them. Meanwhile, Nigel sees that the monkeys he hired weren't much help in capturing the birds and decides to catch them himself. On the tram, Raphael tells Blue to go over to Jewel and express her feelings for her, but Blue's attempts to do so only causes a few awkward moments with her, even though Jewel knew what he was trying to do. Arriving at Luis's shop, Jewel is surprised to learn that he is an English bulldog with a saliva problem. Luis tries to break Blue and Jewel's chain with a saw, but this doesn't work. In fact, he almost ends up killing Blue. But the chain gets stuck in Luis's mouth and his saliva lubricates the macaw's legs, freeing them. Jewel is happy to be free and able to fly again, but on the other hand, Blue is a little sad knowing that they would have to part ways. Jewel, to whom Blue had taken quite a lot of affection, tries to convince him to stay with her in the jungle, but Blue thinks that not knowing how to fly prevents him from being with Jewel. Raphael tells them to be honest, and Blue, somewhat annoyed, confesses that he hates samba, which impresses everyone. A saddened Jewel gives him a cold goodbye and they both part ways. As Perla walks away from her crying for her, Nico and Pedro follow her to later see that Nigel captures her and takes her to the carnival. Raphael follows Blue and tells him that he is not going to the carnival because he loves her family more, just after Nico and Pedro arrive, who inform Blue that Jewel was captured. So Blue decides to go rescue her along with Nico, Pedro, and Raphael, riding Luis to the carnival. At the carnival, the smugglers came in a chicken float, which turns out to be hideous, to the airport with all the birds on it, including Jewel, who Nigel says is using her as bait to lure Blue out, which worries Blue. Jewel, Linda and Tulio arrive on the motorcycle at the carnival and dress up as dancers to foil the smugglers' plans, but a parade organizer thinks Linda is a real dancer and puts her on a float, so she can dance in full view of everyone. The public. Blue and the others arrive at the parade and look for the smugglers' car. Luis gets distracted and Blue is forced to continue alone on his skateboard until he reaches the car, where he tries to free Jewel, but Nigel catches him and cages him, as well as Raphael, Nico, and Pedro. The smugglers arrive at the airport. Linda and Tulio follow them in a macaw float and almost collide with the smugglers' plane, but are late as the smugglers manage to take off and escape in a short SC-7 Skyvan plane. On the plane, Blue manages to escape from his cage, frees Jewel and the other birds together. Blue opens the hatch of the plane, the smugglers notice, then Marcel tries to open the door but it is blocked with the cages. At that moment, all the birds escape, except Jewel, who knows that Blue is still afraid of flying and stays to calm him down. However, Nigel suddenly appears and attacks Blue, trying to suffocate him, but Jewel quickly jumps on him in an attempt to help him. However, Blue quickly manages to hook a fire extinguisher to Nigel's leg and causes him to be ejected out of the plane and subsequently be hit by one of the propellers and is almost without feathers. Seeing that the plane is about to crash, Marcel, Armando and Tipa quickly see that there is only one parachute available, so Armando and Tipa start arguing about who will use it, but Marcel beats them and jumps out of the plane, but these, not wanting to stay, also decide to launch themselves after Marcel. On the other hand, Jewel, unable to fly due to her wound, falls from the plane, which due to the failure of an engine thanks to Nigel's impact with the propeller, is about to crash. Blue drops down to rescue Jewel, who is shocked to see what he did. Blue realizes that his love for Jewel is greater than his fear of flying, and Jewel, touched, kisses him as they fall, giving Blue enough motivation to spread his wings, feel his heartbeat, and manage to fly, saving Jewel's life and himself at the same time. Blue takes Jewel to Linda and Julio, who healed her of her wound a short time later, and Blue joins her in the wild, saying goodbye to Linda. Blue and Jewel are a couple and end up being the parents of 3 children, and they celebrate it in the jungle with his friends. Meanwhile, Nigel survives the accident, but ends up badly injured and plucked, which takes advantage of the marmoset monkey to take photos and make fun of him. In the credits, Marcel, Armando, and Chipa are shown to be in prison, while Linda and Tulio adopt Fernando. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more videos like this.